If you're looking for a home right now, scrolling through Zillow or Redfin or whatever you use, you probably figure you're seeing everything that's out there. That's the whole point of those sites, right? But in May 2026, thousands of home listings in the Chicago area just vanished from Zillow overnight. And it wasn't a technical glitch, and sellers didn't pull their homes off the market. What happened is the regional MLS, which is basically the shared database that feeds listings to all the sites buyers use, completely cut Zillow off from its data. So one day, those homes were showing up in your search results, and the next day, they were just gone. And if you were a buyer in Chicago searching Zillow that morning, you had absolutely no clue anything was missing. And this wasn't some little local spat over technical details. The whole thing got triggered by a deal between two massive players in American real estate. Compass, which sources describe as the largest brokerage in the country by sales volume, had partnered with that regional MLS called MRED back in April 2026 to expand MRED's private listing network nationwide. We're talking about a network that keeps certain homes off the public market entirely. And that brings up a question most buyers have honestly never had to think about. If the whole system is supposed to show you every home that's for sale, how is any of this even possible? So let me walk you through how it's supposed to work. When a home goes up for sale, the listing agent puts it into the local MLS, which is basically a shared clearinghouse that feeds every major portal. Zillow pulls from it, Realtor.com pulls from it. They all drink from the same pipe. And there's actually an industry rule that backs this whole thing up. It's called NAR's Clear Cooperation Policy. And what it says is pretty straightforward. Once an agent publicly markets a property, that listing has to go into the MLS within 1 business day. The entire system is built on one promise, that every buyer gets to see every home. That's the deal. And you've probably been relying on that promise your whole life without ever thinking about it. But that rule has a gap in it, and honestly, it's not a small one. The Clear Cooperation Policy only kicks in when a home is publicly marketed. There's a carve-out for something called office exclusives, which are homes that get marketed only within a single brokerage's own walls. So if a listing never crosses the line into public marketing, it never has to touch the MLS. It never has to show up on Zillow. It can be shown to one brokerage's agents and their buyers. Sold, closed, done. And you, the buyer on the outside, would never even know that home existed. Now you might look at that and think, okay, that's probably some niche exception that barely comes up. But Compass didn't treat it as a niche exception. Compass built an entire strategy around it. Here's how it actually works. A listing starts as an office exclusive, visible only to Compass agents. Then it can move into a coming soon phase, which gives it slightly wider exposure, but it's still pre-MLS, still not on any public portal. And only after that, if the home hasn't already sold, does it finally land on the public MLS where everybody else can see it. A home can go under contract in phase 1 or phase 2, and a buyer who isn't working with a Compass agent would never know that home was ever available. And this isn't some small-scale experiment they're running. When Compass joined MRED's private listing network in April 2026, it agreed to subsidize MRED subscriptions for 100,000 agents across its network, according to Realtor.com. 100,000 agents funneled into a private listing pipeline that sits completely outside the public market. That's infrastructure for a two-tier system. So what happened when this thing actually went live? Zillow saw it as a threat and responded accordingly. Zillow told MRED it would exclude some listings connected to the private network. MRED fired back by cutting Zillow off from its entire data feed. And that's how thousands of Chicago area homes just disappeared from Zillow's search results. Real homes, real sellers, real buyers who suddenly couldn't find them. Now Zillow's argument sounds pretty reasonable on the surface. The company says private listings fragment the market and make it harder for buyers to see all their options. And if you stop right there, Zillow looks like the good guy standing up for you. But Zillow's entire business model depends on being the one place buyers go to see nearly every available home. If listings start moving behind brokerage walls, that core value Zillow offers, that sense of completeness, just falls apart. And according to the mortgage reports, Zillow is simultaneously defending its own FTC antitrust suit related to a rental listings deal with Redfin. So Zillow isn't exactly walking into this fight with clean hands. Now flip it around to the other side. Compass CEO Robert Refkin framed the MRED deal as supporting agents who fulfill their fiduciary duties to clients and protecting them from retaliation by portals, which is a pretty clear shot at Zillow. That sounds principled. But Compass's consumer protection language just happens to line up perfectly with its business interest. The more listings it keeps behind its own walls, the more buyers are forced to come to Compass agents. That's the whole competitive advantage. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, Dave, so who's actually looking out for me here? Well, that's exactly the point. As one analysis put it, neither company is wrong about the other's incentives, and there's really little reason for buyers or sellers to root for either side. At the root of this fight, according to that same analysis, is a structural problem that can't be solved neatly. Zillow needs every listing to be public to survive. Compass needs some listings to be private to stand out. Those two models can't both win at the same time. And you, the buyer, you're the terrain this war is being fought on. So if you find this kind of breakdown useful, where we actually pull apart what's going on instead of just reading you the headline, hit subscribe, drop a like. It genuinely helps the channel keep going. Now let's get into what this actually means for real people. Because understanding the business fight is one thing. Figuring out where you personally land in this system is something else entirely. If you're working with a Compass agent, you're basically on tier 1. You get access to homes that other agents and their buyers simply cannot see. Homes that may never show up on any public portal. That's a real advantage, and Compass knows it, because it's a powerful recruiting tool for agents and a draw for buyers. And according to one report, Compass has filed complaints against Zillow's listing standards across 26 states and dozens of MLSs and realtor associations. So this is a nationwide push to defend and expand the private listing model. And then there's everyone else. If you're not working with a Compass agent, you're on tier 2. In Chicago, this already played out in real time. And in any market where Compass has a significant presence, the risk is the same. There may be homes for sale that you will never see, and you won't even know you missed them. A congressional subcommittee warned the deal could harm housing affordability, though that's a stated concern, not a determined finding. You could be doing everything right, checking every portal, working with an agent you trust, and still be searching a market that isn't whole anymore. Now, you might ask, what about the sellers? Aren't they choosing this voluntarily? Compass pitches private listings to sellers as a privacy benefit. No open houses, no public clock ticking on your listing. And seller privacy is a real interest, it's not some trick. But a 2025 Bright MLS study cited by Realtor.com found that private listings actually take longer to sell and offer no price benefit to the seller, though the primary study wasn't independently reviewed for this breakdown. On top of that, the congressional subcommittee raised concerns that pushing sellers toward private listings may not actually help the seller, and that brokers may be incentivized to do it because it keeps the whole transaction in-house. So even the group Compass claims to be serving may not actually be coming out ahead. And there's a deeper layer to all of this. Fair housing advocates, including the Consumer Federation of America and the Urban League, warn that pocket listings have a documented history of enabling racial exclusion in housing, and that a new generation of private listing networks risks repeating that pattern, even if nobody intends it. That's a concern raised by named organizations based on historical evidence, not a documented current violation. But it's a dimension that's really worth knowing about. So where does all of this leave you, the person who's actually trying to buy a home? As one analysis framed it, no single search and no single agent can show you the entire market anymore. The portal was always a window into the market, not the market itself. And now that window has blinds that someone else controls. The system has structurally changed underneath you, but that doesn't mean you're helpless. Ask your agent directly, are there private or office exclusive listings in my market that aren't on the MLS? Does your brokerage participate in any private listing networks? What am I not seeing on Zillow? These are real questions you can bring up in your next conversation. In markets where Compass has a large presence, some homes may get sold before they ever hit a public portal. Your search strategy needs to account for that reality. And this fight is far from over. As of late July 2026, a federal court hadn't yet ruled on whether to block the Compass MRED arrangement during the trial, and that ruling could reshape the whole landscape. A congressional subcommittee is demanding answers from both companies, with hearings likely to follow. 2 states have already signed restrictions on private listings this year, with a 3rd bill pending in New York, according to Realtor.com. And consumer advocates have formally asked the DOJ to investigate, though there's no confirmation yet that the DOJ has actually acted. Until courts, Congress, or regulators settle this, the 2-tier system is the market you're searching in. That listing you missed, it might not have been a listing you could have seen in the first place, but now you know that. You know why the system has a hole, who put it there, and what questions to ask so you're not searching blind. If this was useful, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, has your agent ever mentioned private listings in your market? I'm curious what you're seeing out there.